Great.
Say it. Can you see it live? I don't know. That's
Yeah.
it. We are live. Hey, hey,
Bingo.
hey. Today is Tuesday, the 11th of September 2018. Sorry, everybody, I'm on twice because my computer is just so slow and I can talk easier on here. We have Astral with us. Patricia should be on. And we have special guest, Lifting the Lid, Colin. Hello.
Aha. Do you mind if I correct you there, please, Karen? It's
Oh.
Rob. It's Robin, but I don't publicise that
Oh,
all over the
sorry.
place.
Yes, sorry. Robin.
Yeah,
I said
Robin.
that, didn't
All
I?
right.
No
Oh,
worries.
yes.
No
No
worries,
worries,
Karen.
Robin. Whoops a
It's
daisy. Good start. Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
I don't know
Do
where
you
I
know,
got Colin from. I'm going to write Robin down in big letters so I don't forget.
I'm going to make you feel better now, actually, Marilyn. Hi,
You
hi,
got your own
Marilyn.
back.
Hi. Yeah,
Marilyn's
no,
in the chat room, but you got your own back.
yeah, no, Karen. Actually, when I was a kid, I said to my mum, "I really want to be called Colin," and she said, "Why?" I said, "I don't know. I just want to be called Colin." And then, countless times during my life, people have accidentally gone Colin, and then meant, "Oh, sorry, Robin." So it's actually happened many times. Would you believe it?
Maybe
Anyway,
maybe you look like a Colin.
yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, it's really nice of you to join us, and I really like that video that I mirrored of yours last week. It's really good.
Thank you very much. Well, it's part of the journey I've been on this year, actually. And if I can start in sort of March this year, I can tell you what things have been happening to me in the last sort of 6 months. I guess before that, I became a flat earther October 2015, but I decided to do more about it this year. And March was about the time that I decided to start a meetup in Bristol. So I registered on meetup.com and a few members started to join. And I got some attention from people who were running other meetups. So Charlotte and Dave, who run a meetup in Birmingham and was also doing it in Cheltenham and London at the same time, kindly came over to Bristol to help support the launch of the meetup. So the group started to grow. They went off to the convention and got inspired a bit more. And then during the sort of May, June time, I got approached by 4 different people who had no relation to me whatsoever. They just noticed my presence on meetup.com. And 2 of them were documentary filmmakers. One was a YouTube channel, and one was an alternative.
That's good.
Yeah, one was an alternative media radio channel. I thought, crumbs, that came quickly. I haven't done anything special. All I've done is set a date, posted it on meetup.com, and obviously starting to grow a group. And some lovely people came all the way from London, Birmingham, down in the southwest, and they travelled miles to come to this meetup. And I thought, this is pretty special. Anyway, the guys who were making the films, they had 2 different briefs. One was a 5-minute mini documentary, and great timing tonight. He's just sent me the link. So if I may just pop it in the chat room here, it's just come tonight.
Yeah, sure.
And this documentary is called A Flat Earther's Guide to the Galaxy. And it covers a one-to-one with me on Bristol Harbourside, and I'm giving my side of the story. And then the filmmaker also came to what was my next milestone, really, which was a day of activism on Weston-super-Mare. And Harry and Jason, Ruben, John Thor, Charlotte and Dave, and 2 of the guys from the Bristol group came along. And both the documentary filmmakers captured that one activism event. And the result of the first one, the 5-minute mini doc, has now just been published in the chat. So can I just check that arrived? If I post it in the our private chat here, does it get posted?
No, put it in the other one if you don't mind. The one that you said hello to Marilyn.
Okie doke. Well, I'll try and do that whilst I'm talking. So basically, this 5-minute mini doc is not a bad representation of flat Earth, I think. I mean, the guy who's making it is clearly not a flat earther, but he's given us a fairly fair go, I think. And Ruben's in it as well, and he does a great job. And various others in there are just putting out what I feel is a really positive vibe. And the message is all quite positive. There are some negatives in it. I mean, he's clearly putting globe images and NASA. He's trying to show the strength and might of NASA. And some of the music at the end is a little bit, tongue in cheek. But I think, to be fair, you have to show balance. You're going to have to expect something like that. And I always thought that documentaries and documentary filmmakers, given what we've seen so far in this movement, would be a bit troublesome and problematic, but that wasn't the case. I was quite happy with this. So I've just posted it in the chat room. I've also posted it around various Facebook groups. So what I'd really appreciate is if those that are watching it click into the description of that video. The filmmaker has his own channel, and what's going on under his version is, as you can imagine, quite a few trolls and snarky comments. So I wouldn't mind a mini army of flat earthers going in there to post links to NASA fakery and perhaps some of John Thor's fantastic 10-minute videos to knock them dead. That would be nice. So back to where I was, the sort of going back to May, June time, the guys who were eventually going to help me set up the one-to-one with an astrocosmologist started out by just coming to Bristol and joined us for one of our meetup events. And Nicholas is such a nice guy. He's always been respectful, and his scope for the documentary, if you like, is to show us as earnestly seeking the truth, passionate, warm, open people, and he really likes us all. And he would call himself a globe skeptic at this point.
Robin, can I just interrupt you one second?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
That link that you put in the back there, it's not working. Not just for me, but other people too. I mean, it would be nice if it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there, man.
Yeah.
You carry on now.
Okay, I'm just firing it. I
don't know why.
Let's have another go. Can you let me know if that one works? So the guy, Nicholas and Josh, set me up with a meeting on the Medway, which was supposed to be a laser experiment, followed by a one-to-one with an astrocosmologist. Jason's just saying that link works, so fingers crossed that's good for everyone.
Brilliant.
So what Nicholas did was he knew, or he used to go to Imperial College, which is where the same scientists that debated Dave Murphy, Darren Nesbitt, and the guys at the FE UK conference in April, he knew them and had spoken to them and saw the online event when it was posted back in April. And he thought, wouldn't it be good to, as a media studies student, to create a mini doc himself? So the scope of the documentary is to follow me a little bit, follow the meetup and the activism, but then finish up with a conversation with an astrocosmologist. And the astrocosmologist was a guy called Dr. Kareem Malik, who's from, I got it wrong on my video, but the picture at the front was correct, Queen Mary's University. And he's been in the game for a long, long time. And I wasn't expecting someone who would capitulate by any means, and I wasn't expecting someone who wouldn't know some answers to things. But what I was very surprised.
You thought he'd know a bit more.
Yeah, if you watch my video, which is a couple of videos ago, I did a roundup. I did a review of it because the following morning, I just reflecting on it, and I just thought, you know what? He could have done so much better if he'd just done a few hours homework. Maybe he might have known some answers. But one of the, I was offering him up some pretty softballs in the beginning, and I was saying, what about what he might have come up with, refraction and things. I was going to offer up curvature for the first instance. And most go-to scientists would come back with that's refraction or something along those lines, but he had nothing in his toolbox. So that just told me he hadn't done any research, and I was quite ruthless, if I'm honest, because I wanted to absolutely nail him to the mast, because I knew that was my one shot to get a high-standing scientist, pinned down by Flat Earth Truths. And I show the slide deck that I used in the review. So if you want to click on it, guys, and then go back a couple of videos, you'll see the slide deck about halfway through. And the things I remember, you know Victoria and Tom. Well, yeah. Tom's Facebook post about 3 months ago was of an astrolabe, and I didn't even know what one of those was. But for those who don't know what it is, an astrolabe is a timepiece which shows the positioning of the stars, the sun, and the moon, and the time. And it's been, some of these astrolabes are in town centres in Austria and Switzerland, and they still tell the time now and position the sun, the moon, and the stars all perfectly correctly now.
Yeah.
And that obviously predates heliocentrism and should be an absolute,
Oh yeah, that was in your video. Yep, carry on.
It should be a middle stump. You're out, mate. But Dr. Kareem looked at me as if to say, "What's an astrolabe got to do with this?" So I think on reflection, in my review, I say, if I was being harsh, I'd say you're out of depth in your own field, because I came with everything I had, all the real gotcha questions. And for those who haven't watched the review, I'll just touch on a few now. I did the vacuum of space next to the pressurized system of the Earth's atmosphere. I did no visible curvature, measurable curvature. I did the long distance record. I did the Van Allen belts, are they deadly or not? I did the 70-mile shadow of the lunar eclipse when the moon is 2,000 miles across. We're talking 97% reduction in the shadow size. He didn't give me an answer for that.
No spin, no movement.
We did the spin. We did Aries failure, Sagnac, Michelson-Morley, Michelson-Gale. We talked about aeroplanes tracking north to south with a horizontal spin would cause chaos, or flipping back and going east and west would cause chaos. He gave some bog standard answers, but they were like the beginners debunkers answers. So he would say the Earth's atmosphere is just clinging to the ball and you're traveling with it.
Sticky.
Oh gosh. And we covered a few more, like the thermosphere being 2,000 degrees C, and how could we get through the thermosphere with aluminium and steel when the melting points of those two metals are 670 and I think 1,500 degrees C. And again, he just shrugged his shoulders when I first mentioned the thermosphere. And I'm thinking, listen, pal, you're supposed to know this. This is your field of study. And I was getting quite frustrated. In fact, I was getting really passionate because, I took a day off work. I travelled all the way across from Bristol to the Medway, which is Kent. And that's a good 3.5 hours travel. And here he is, not really having done any homework. But what was good about him is he didn't get angry and he didn't get heated, and he didn't respond with any sort of emotional response. But he tried his best, and then quite in humility said to Nick, I haven't done any homework. I look like an idiot. And I really respect him for saying that, because you could get pompous and arrogant in your knowledge, couldn't you, if you had loads of knowledge?
So what's he doing then?
What was the reason for him not looking into things or doing his own work? Was he not just couldn't give a shit?
I think what you have to do is take a step back and go, what set up this event? What was it all or not mine? This was just one chapter in his Diary of a Flat Earther kind of documentary. And to be fair to the astrocosmologist, I don't know what brief he had. And if I was briefing him, I'd be saying, look, you're going to have to come with some evidence of a globe, because this flat Earth is coming with evidence that it's not. And I don't think he prepped at all. I think he thought, this is going to be a gentle conversation with a gentleman who currently believes the world's flat, and he may not have even been aware that we've got a huge movement growing by the bucket load and by the day. And when I'm looking at my review again, I'm pretty fair on it, really, because I say, if I was being kind, I just think he didn't know I was going to come armed with all this information. They did have to stand up for himself. So I think, as debates go, it was an unfair match, and I didn't expect it to swing my way so powerfully. What I'm really delighted about is there's a professional film crew capturing every word, and it's going to go into a documentary. But on a more sort of person-to-person level, we caught the train back from the Medway, which is Chatham, back into London. So that's 40 minutes on the train. And he got off at Stratford and I got off at St Pancras. And basically, I got the opportunity to get my iPad out with all the slides. And it's not a bad shout for me to dig those slides out, actually, and put them in the chat room, because I got the slides together having listened to one of Mark Sargent's interviews. Said, I use these 12 slides and they convert so many people, and they're really hard to debunk. I also use Mark Sargent's top 5 questions to scientists, like fully prepared with gotcha questions. And what I did was I showed him these slides on the way back, and I was showing him NASA fakery and NASA imagery. And I think the most poignant moment for me was when I showed him the LEM lunar takeoff, which is just a joke. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows it, but I'm gonna drop it in the chat room now. It's the LEM lunar takeoff from Apollo 17 in 1974. It's only a short clip.
When the camera lifts up, you mean?
Yeah, and also the Flash Gordon sparkles.
Yeah.
I joke about it because it's like, it's worse than Flash Gordon. It's terrible. And what happened was, when you watched it, I was able to just make commentary and say, just please observe the sparkles there and be honest with yourself and tell me, is that real? And he wasn't able to say no there and then, like my kids have, and my wife has. I've just popped it in the channel now. But he did go very quiet. And when someone goes quiet, usually that means they're digesting what you just told them. And from my perspective, I knew that I'd hit home at that point. And this was a very private moment because, bless him, Nick had bought the tickets for us. And I had no idea we were going to spend 40 minutes together after we essentially, what I thought was going to part company at the train station. We then spent another 40 minutes together, and I rubbed my hands with glee, and I thought, I've got you on my own. There's no referee.
Yeah, I've got you now. I've got you now. You can't go anywhere.
There's no cameras. There's no microphones. It's just me and you. And my here's one I prepared earlier, slide deck of 20 odd slides. And I think what happened towards the end was he could see why I was doing what I was doing, because I probably showed him enough to at least think, crumbs, my head's spinning all this facts and stuff that you're showing me. I can see why you're doing it. And maybe there was a flicker when I made him watch that LEM lunar takeoff. Just maybe, I think I got in there. And again, to his credit, at the end of the filming session, he did actually make a really nice comment, and that was to say, we're both here seeking the truth, and we should be going where the evidence takes us. And I'm thinking, please just follow the evidence then. But on the whole, I'm really, really pleased with the day, because I got to face someone who's allegedly in this field. B, I got it caught on camera, and Nick is definitely going to compile this into a mini doc. So certain elements of that will be caught on camera. And C, it gave me the inspiration to create a new website and a new video called provetheglobe.com, which is just a tool for flat earth people in the community to share with their friends, scientists they know, people with science degrees, to go challenge them. And I really want people to share it far and wide. And what I've done on the provetheglobe.com website is I've put like a registration page, and you can register your scientist on there, and they will, you can register an event, you know, like a debate or a discussion. What I'm hoping people will do is record the event if they can on camera, and then let me know about the outcome, and I'll post it as a news item on the website. And for any scientist that accepts the challenge, they go on my Hall of Fame, like Dr. Kareem. And if they reject the challenge or don't answer 2 or 3 emails and requests, then they go on the Hall of Shame. And
I like it.
And do you know what? I got an email just this morning from an amateur astronomer who's watched the video and wants to do a debate. And we've set one up for the 25th of September. And I'm going to record it on Skype, and I'm going to create an event on the website. And we will have our second Hall of Fame entry. So I just encourage anyone, you know, this is a tool that you can use to quietly have a go at scientists. And I set this out to be a respectful challenge. You know, I want people to actually use an honourable framework to do this, so that you're not discouraging scientists, you're actually encouraging them to come forwards. So I shall definitely be keeping people posted on that, because I think the more we can encourage and show that there are scientists willing to come forwards, then the better.
It's brilliant. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea also, yeah. What did you say it's called?
It's called provetheglobe.com.
Provetheglobe.com.
And if you don't mind, I'm just going to whack that in the chat room as well.
Of course. Put it in the chat room.
Okay. And I want to also just put the video that I made with it, because the video is something you can share on social media. And that was the idea with that video, was because, you know, we're all sat on our phones sometimes, and it's just easier to share a link to a video. So that has reference to the website as well. So let me just pop that in there. And that's just like a 3-minute video that shows who we are as a movement, what we've looked into, what problems we have with the globe, just small snippets, not in-depth stuff, and then a challenge to scientists. And I'm here to help. You know, if someone wants to do something and have me sit in as the flat earth representative, I'm more than happy that, you know, to represent. And I'm sure there are people all across the globe who would jump at the chance to do it for you, if you're just willing to share the link and bring a scientist to the table.
Yeah, can I say that you also, Robin, are a member of Sun and Moon, and you come on the chat masses, and it's, you know, we're a platform for people to talk. So I'm really glad that we've got to meet you. But, you know, I was a bit amazed at the stuff on your channel, because obviously having your own channel, I do watch people, but I'm so busy.
I'm not even sub to you, Robin. I'm sorry, I've just subbed to you now, man. And yeah,
listen,
but I mean,
listen.
We are so many, aren't we?
I am so just honoured to be here, because this platform has. I totally remember your second birthday party, guys, because that was just like legendary. That was amazing. I was just.
That was the first year.
Was it the first?
Yeah.
Was it only 1 year? Crumbs, guys, you've been going.
It feels like we've been going longer. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
But but if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking, you know, how could something escalate so quickly? Not just for you, but just for me as well. I mean, I've just been sat there at home going, do you know what? I think I want to get involved. And then I register a meetup, and here I am now with a website, a meetup. I've done some activism, and I've challenged a few scientists. So I think what I'm saying is, if normal people like me can do it, anyone can do it, and you just got to just get started with something. Start a meetup, because meetup.com is such a good platform for doing it. And I've put together a little instructional video. Again, you've got to go back about 10 videos from me, but I've put a how do you start up a meetup guide video, and I thoroughly recommend it, because you stop sitting in your own home and feeling isolated. You're getting out and meeting people face to face. And I also want to encourage those that have been into activism or thinking about activism, because I want to mention one of my fabulous members now at the Bristol meetup. I was doing some activism on my own in the park a couple of Sundays ago, and one of the guys that reached out to me on Facebook happens to live in Bristol, and his lovely wife, I went out for a drink the night before, met them and made them feel comfortable enough to come along. And it turns out Dan has become a flat earther because someone had left a research flat earth stickers in all the gents' toilets at the Amazon Depot Collection Centre in Avonmouth in Bristol. And Dan was just telling me, he said, do you know what? I come in here for 5 minutes every day, and I've been watching these stickers, not really paying too much attention, but my subconscious was working on it. And when something caught my eye later on, I realized that it was truly buried in there and I needed to look into it. And so he started watching Mark Sargent videos, and soon enough later he became a flat earther. And I want to tell a story about last Sunday, because it was absolutely hilarious. I set up my banner, I'm in a park, St. George's Park in Bristol. I set my banner down, I got my microphone on and my camera running, and Dan came up. He came to join me. And then, no, actually, that's right. He was running late. And then this guy who comes up to look at my banner, and I'm trying to talk him into, engaging. I can see a big smirk on his face, because it turns out he makes satellites. And you know where he's going to go with that, images from space and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I'm doing a to and fro.
Yeah, all the cartoons.
Yeah, I really recommend people to watch the video I did on Sunday, because it's hilarious. I'm doing it for about 10 or 15 minutes. This guy's throwing everything he can at me, but I'm equally throwing some swerve balls, and his answers are becoming more and more ridiculous. But meanwhile, beside him, I've got a curious guy who'd already been with me for 5 or 10 minutes. And so he's watching this to and fro, and probably grateful he's getting the alternative view. I'm probably going off to a tangent here. He was going then to meet a flat earth mate, funny enough. And I think his curiosity got the better of him, so he was stood talking to me. But back to the satellite guy, he's just finishing up. And this lovely Polish lady walks past and goes, "You must listen to him. He's telling the truth." to the guy. And it was so funny. I said, "Thank you, madam. That's very nice of you to say." And she carried on. She said, "Yeah, because we are told so many lies and they don't teach you how to think. And it's terrible. You should look into it." And I'm thinking, great. But meanwhile, the guy's smirk is still there.
Spot on.
I mean, it was wonderful. I couldn't have written it better for the guy in the middle.
Yeah.
The guy in the middle was just about to go off to have lunch with a friend who was right into it. But I left him one of my leaflets, which is the DIRTH leaflet you can get from the Flat Earth Podcast website. Awesome leaflet. It's a trifold leaflet with the top 10 proofs and all the great channels on it. Anyway, I left him with the leaflet. She took one. He was making a paper airplane out of it. And he left with a big smirk on his face. And I thought, well, I left him with a parting shot. I said, "Look, sir, you're going to not know truth when it's staring you right in the face. I think you'll be one of the last people to acknowledge it." He went, yeah, whatever, and walked off.
Yeah.
Anyway, he went down to the Cafe Park, where I noticed him because I joined Dan a bit later on. I said, "There he is, there, look. There he is. And I walked off. And the guy with the satellite was with his dad and his wife, and he said, "Oh, I bet you there'll never be another flat earther in this park." And do you know what happened? Dan piped up and went, "I'm a flat earther." Must have been priceless.
Yay!
Because it kind of was just perfect timing. So big shout out to Dan for that. And I just want to say, you know, if anyone's putting stickers out, just keep going, because that's what happens. And I think gents' toilets on the inside or just above the, the urinals or inside the cubicles, just keep going, because you go there every day, don't you, at work?
I think what you're saying there, you know, about just telling people, you know, because I was speaking to someone the other day. It took me 5 minutes. I didn't even have to convince them. They'd convinced themselves. Yeah. And then another person came along, and the person I've just started talking to was started to red pill the other person, you know. So okay. I'm stood out there listening, thinking, oh my God, now she's trying to red pill this other person into believing the earth's flat, you know. And I've just told her 15 minutes ago.
Fantastic.
Brilliant, yeah. I love it.
What I'm finding though, guys, is because I've decided to go to the same park at the same time every Sunday, people are getting to know me. And what I'm noticing is I've only got, like, I take the dog for a walk for an hour, and then I sit for an hour, and then I go home. So I'm not there all day. I don't know if there's any distortion on the sound, guys, but I'm getting quite a bit of distortion.
No, it sounds fine to me.
Okay, let me just unplug my... Yeah, I can hear a bit of distortion. Never mind. Basically, I'm sat there at the same time for 3 weeks in a row, and I'm almost taking a little survey of out of say, I don't know, 10 people that I'm engaging with in any 1 hour. There's definitely 1 or 2 flat earthers in there. And then there's definitely 4 or 5 that have heard about it and want to engage. And then there's obviously the skeptics and what have you. I've had some amazingly deep conversations and some really funny ones as well, because I've had a guy who I said, "What's your number 1 proof of the globe then?" He said, "The Bible." I said, "That's interesting." I said, "I think the Bible says it's fixed and immovable." And this guy says, "Yeah, it's fixed." I said, the Earth's doing 67,000 miles an hour around the sun. He said, "Yeah, it's fixed and immovable on its track around the sun." And anyway, I caught them this week, and they said, "Have you found the edge yet?" And I said, "Have you found the firmament yet?" Anyway, I'm starting to have banter with the people in the park. And I guess what I'm saying is, you take a survey of people in the park, and you can tell there's awareness. You know, there's definitely awareness of what's going on. And that's really encouraging. And,
yeah, that's brilliant.
And my little dog, Ted, is as cute as anything. He's my secret weapon. God, he goes out and he drops his ball in front of people, wags his tail, and it just draws. He helps draw people in, which is great. He's my little secret weapon.
But what? Because they look at your sweet little doggy, and then that's it. The doggy.
It helps, yeah, it helps. But I just wanted to also give a massive shout out to John Smith, Globelight, Roxanne, and the guys, and Jason and Ruben and everyone who's done activism, because if it wasn't for them coming to Western Supermare in August to support me, I don't think I'd have had the courage to do it.
Aww. So and now look at you.
Good. Yeah, I mean, they're awesome. I think the background noise is me. Sorry, it's my Facebook's auto playing a video in the background. Yeah, so the guys they're so supportive. And if I hadn't have done that day out in Western Supermare, which by the way was amazing, we had, like I say, the 2 documentary filmmakers there, and we were there from 11 till about 4 o'clock. Then the rain came down, so we all went to the nearest nice pub for a nice meal. And again, we had a great cross-section of people that you talk to on the street, and it's clear people are aware of it. And you know, I think I had something like 15 or 20 conversations during or 4 or 5 hours, and I definitely know 2 people wide awake, completely awake, and then there were those that were truly open. So very encouraged when you do it, that it's not quite as harsh as you might think.
So is that where you're going each time for your hour? Is Weston-super-Mare or Bristol?
No, a great guy in my meetup called Rich. He lives in Weston, and we had planned to get a P900 and a telescope, because from Weston you can see Ilfracombe, which is 42 miles away, and that would have been a great thing to show people. You know, let me show you this now. You can see it from there, but the visibility was pretty poor, and we just stuck to a straight street activism. But I still think having the sea behind you is a great prop. It's a really great prop to just say, look at the water, sir. Can you see it's level? And I think that's really useful to have that as a prop. Although I know Harry's coming to Bristol on the 23rd, I suspect he'll be in the centre then, and I'll try and join him down there in the centre.
Yeah, and Sun and Moon wish Harry the best of luck on his trip. And well done, Roxanne, Jason, and the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, I know most people have heard this message, but for the sake of a couple of these, please chip in. If it's just £5 to the GoFundMe, they're up to about 65% of funds raised now, which certainly means they can get going and they can get through the first week or so. But let's all put £5 in, guys, if you can. And I know that the guys will really appreciate it. I've seen they're keeping a really accurate ledger, and I've seen the price points for everything that they're trying to achieve. So, you know, it's just covering cost. It's not covering meals, beers, and all those sorts of things. It's just simply petrol, the van, the travel across ferries over to Ireland and up into Scotland. So you just imagine, guys, how many people will wake up if Harry and Jason get to do the whole tour. The activism creates such a wave on the day. It really, really does. I know activism is not for everyone, but I would recommend just going down to watch. If you haven't necessarily got the courage to talk to people, just go and watch, because the 2 guys from Bristol group did exactly that. And then it wasn't long before they started to join in, because you can see people are relaxed, they're open.
Yeah, well, you know, can I just add to that as well? Also, if people are down there, there's nothing better than if you're like doing something, activism, and you get someone coming up who is a flat earther, you know, because obviously they're not going to stay quiet for very long. Suddenly, at some point, they'll probably want to speak to you, you know, and make some conversation and that. And before you know it, they'll be doing their own little pieces of activism somewhere else up the country.
Absolutely. And if you're not already, go and subscribe to the channels that do the activism. So please forgive me if I miss a few off, but there's obviously John Smith Global Line, there's Plain Ranger, there's Eco Dave, there's Marilyn Tweed from the US, there's Zoom Truth, there's Joshua Authentic Content, there's you might have to help me now. D Marble does a bit, doesn't he? Flat Earth Fokker, Joey. There's 2 Joeys, isn't there? Karen, can you help me?
What, Joey Roche, you mean?
Yeah, Joey Roche, and also Joey, who's been on Roxanne's Hangout.
Right.
Joey Silver, is it?
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, he comes in our chat room too. Yeah, Joey Silver.
So, guys, you need to just subscribe to those channels, because you learn so much watching how those. And I must give a massive shout out to Tom, to Victoria, Zanny, Dave, Ruben, all these guys who most of them have got channels. But I watch and learn when I watch them.
Martin Kenny as well.
Oh, of course, yeah. I knew I'd forget some because I wasn't really prepared to list them. But do subscribe to all the activist channels, because it's in that fresh conversation that you learn how to handle all the objections.
Yeah, did you say Dave Murphy at all? He's there as well, isn't he?
Yeah, Dave
Murphy.
Yeah. So yeah, just go back and watch some of the the summer ones from Hyde Park Speakers Corner, or go and watch. I actually love going back to watch some of Harry's older ones in Scotland and in Ireland. They're amazing. Just how he just gently handles people who are clearly there to push back, but he gently challenges them till they reach a point where they go, yeah, you've got a point, or okay, I'll look into it. And that's all you need to achieve for that moment.
You have to keep your cool, don't you? Being an activist, you have to keep your cool.
The guy, if you watch my one from Sunday, it was a proper lip biter for 10 minutes because the guy was really not making any sense, but he was really quite smirky. So I would encourage anyone to, get involved with activism just passively, just go and watch, because there's an awful lot to get from the event. And with Harry's tour, if you're in the UK, you must go down if you can. Just go down for an hour and just go and observe and watch, because I bet you after 10 minutes, you're handing out leaflets. You just want to get involved. I'd also say, back to my original point of, you get this momentum by starting. You can get momentum by just starting a meetup, because you might not have courage to do things on your own, but when those join you in the pub for your meetup, you start to make plans and you start to think, well, what can we do together? And like I said before, because of registering on meetup.com, that's a search engine all of its own. So people do search for things, Flat Earth Bristol, for instance, and I bet you meetup.com is one of the first things that comes up. So as the host, you get contacted, and then all of a sudden you're involved in things you probably never dreamed you would be. And if it wasn't for the meetup.com, I wouldn't have met Nicholas, who would never have set me up with a scientist, who would have never triggered me to create a website. And, I've got plenty more plans for the future.
And another angle. Because,
Absolutely.
Z Proxy's in our chat room. He does 360 camera work, does a lot of work with Stan Smith. Camera people, recording
Fantastic.
and experimenting. But we need everybody we need lots of us with different things. We can't all do the same thing. So very much appreciated. And as I said, I showed your video to Mr. Thrive and Survive, and he really liked it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll be very excited to see Nicholas's documentary when it comes out, because the more credible and professional these things are, the more of a message gets out. And I was slightly nervous with the short film that I've posted today, because I wasn't quite sure whether he was going to be genuine throughout. And yes, granted, he's put some nice globe images and rockets taking off and a slightly sarcastic theme tune at the end. But to be fair, he allowed me to get quite a few points into that film. And as long as it gets viewed by 100, 1,000, however many non-flat earthers, then I'm happy. The message has gone out. And that just came from just starting up a meetup. The guy gave me a ring. We arranged to meet literally that weekend. The sun was shining, so we did it there and then. And it can be that quick, so don't belittle the small things, because as a small meetup can turn into something much bigger. And I hope it does. I hope this sort of ProveTheGlobe.com and some of these things that I'm up to will trigger more events going forwards.
Well, yeah, exactly. That little snippet of Coronation Street, when was it, last week or so? There's not many people watch Coronation Street, is there? Of course there is. There's absolutely millions of people who watch Coronation Street.
Absolutely.
And they have these extra episodes, don't they? Like Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. Do they still?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there's a principle in selling. People don't buy a product until they've had 7 exposures to it or more.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with Flat Earth. Same with Dan, bless him, from my meetup. He'd been to the toilet day in, day out, and these stickers were cemented in his subconscious. And it wasn't long before his conscious brain started to work on it. And then he started to look into it. So if you can have a mini documentary, a few posts on the social media, something comes up on Coronation Street, you're going to pay attention at some point. Well, you know, this saturation of the media world.
Robin, what happened to you then?
where I can see it happening.
What made you wake up? What made you wake up?
To flat Earth, or just into conspiracies generally?
I think we all do conspiracies and then flat Earth.
Mhm.
But what
Yeah,
was it
no.
for you?
Okay, for flat Earth, it was my daughter came home from work in October 2015, and she works in a recruitment consultancy. And she came home and said, "Someone at work reckons the Earth is flat, and he reckons it's a big conspiracy." And I went, "Nah, surely not. What about pictures of Earth from space, and what about Felix Baumgarten's jump?" I immediately went to that reaction, but it niggled with me for the rest of the day, and I started researching. And 2 weeks later, I was flat earther. And then six months later, I was in a position I felt I could hold my ground and understood most of the angles.
Just asking you then, why do you think some of us wake up and a lot of people don't then? What is it that for some of us it's just so simple? It's like putting a switch on.
Yeah, I mean, even quicker was my daughter-in-law, because I just posted a couple of things on Facebook: Antarctic Treaty, Operation Fishbowl. The next morning, I've got a message saying, "Bloody hell, I didn't know that. I didn't know the Earth was flat, but thanks for telling me." I don't know, because there must be so much programming going on, and you know the water fasting principle will draw out toxins from you. Well, I'm told that it also draws out some of the deep-seated programming that you've got, which tells me it's physical. And I think, you know, programming goes deep, and there are those that just, like, there's people quite close to me who just don't want to know. You know, they're busy enough as it is. They can't be thinking about deep stuff like that. Life's too busy. My uncle and aunt are quite like that, actually. My auntie, she's wide open.
I hate that one. What does it matter?
Yeah, and my uncle is a doctor, and he's a wonderful guy.
What's he going to do for me?
I thought there were similar philosophies when I first knew them, but clearly the doctor, who's a wonderful guy, you know, he's gentle, kind, super guy. Just when you talk to him about stuff, he goes, "Look, I've got enough to think about. I just want to get on with my retirement now." And he's not open and doesn't want to look. So I think it's just about programming and willingness to look. But I think within all of us, there's something that wants to grow and to flourish. It's how hidden it is, and how much baggage you've got that conceals it. Really, I think there's something in all of us that we can reach, and it takes different amount of time. It takes different strategies, and for some, it might not even happen.
Some of the things though that they got us like believing are just insane.
It's crazy, isn't it?
We're spinning 3 different directions, doing about 260,000 miles in 3 different directions. One's anti-clockwise with the moon, and at the equator doing 1,000 miles an hour. We're doing Mach 80.
It's bonkers, isn't it? And I remember talking to the guy on Sunday who was who made satellites, and he said, "What were we talking about?" I said, "What was fantastic was I had a genuinely open guy stood next to him." I said, "If your satellites are so real, then why can't we find real, genuine photos of them in space?" And the guy looked at me, and I said, "I've got some homework for you. So come back next week and tell me if you found any." And the smirky guy smirked, and the other guy thought, "Really? Are you that deadly serious on the challenge?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll increase that to go and look for photos of Earth from space and see how you get on." Anyway, the guy then just flip-flops into a new argument and says, "The ISS, we can see it flying across." I remember Jeranism's argument for that is just superb. He says something like, "Let's look at the diminishing laws of perspective. If we can see an aeroplane barely at 30,000 feet or 7 miles, then how can we see something that's 50 meters across 47 times further away, and he just couldn't cope with that, and he had to switch gears again. He said, "Oh, it is points of light." And on reflection, I wish I'd said something like, "Do you know what you're saying to me? You're saying that I should see West Ham and Arsenal's floodlights from Bristol," which is totally ridiculous. But that would have been an equivalent size, brightness, potentially, and distance. And then I do remember, actually, I could have said the space station is caught in the shadow of Earth because the space station's way too close to the Earth to ever light up.
Sorry, Robin. What I normally say to people is, it's like looking for a battery 2 miles away, you know.
Oh, great. I'll use that one. Thank you.
I don't understand how people don't get that they think that they can see the thing.
I know.
Plus
You
the
know,
speed,
like with
the speed, yeah, and plus the speed of it as well, how fast it's, you know, supposedly orbiting, 17,500 miles an hour.
It's not that they say maybe
You
they
gotta
don't
be pretty
see something. It's just
I know, but
how do they think that that's hundreds of miles away?
Well, I don't know how long you've been in the sort of open-mindedness world, but I do remember a point where I was, you know, I thought everything the BBC told me was true. I thought encyclopedias were bulletproof. I thought Wikipedia was the truth. Oh my gosh.
All a lie, lie, lie.
And I think that's what this guy was, this satellite guy. I think he was like that, you know.
I think that's the thing as well, that as soon as you see one of these, it's like dominoes, isn't it? One domino falls because that's a live domino, you know. It's lying down now. And then it taps the next one. It's a progression. And we're seeing all of these things, you know, like the Suez Canal, for example.
As well, I don't know why people haven't got it, because a lot of people are turning over to cable. That's under the ground.
Yeah. No.
With fibre optics.
Lauren, yes. All the evidence is there. All the proofs there. Everything is there. You just have to, I mean, we're finding more and more and more, aren't we? This hive mentality that we have, it's growing. We're getting more and more into things. We're finding out more and more people are into flat Earth now, and they will also dig into things and spread the message.
It's awesome, really. And then those that are now, like you say, into new subjects. I mean, I've been listening to Martin Leaker a lot, and I know he's in the chat room, so hi, Martin. And I also listen to someone who isn't into flat Earth, but might just be turning the corner now, and that was Max Egan from the Crow House, because he's softened on his position on flat Earth. He was the guy who did the Santiago to Chile flight, recorded it, and forgot to show the crazy direction that the compass was pointing, or tried to talk it away. However, I won't disrespect him because his channel is amazing. His knowledge is great. And he did a great one a couple of weeks ago on the alternative histories, which ties in really well with what Martin's doing. And Martin, if you're listening, have a look at the Crow House from a couple of weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago now. And he makes reference to a channel called New Earth. And there's this lady, in the Eastern European lady, who's done like years of research, loads of great videos, and it's about hidden histories. So anyway, I digress. What I'm saying is that it's exciting that we've got this second and third wave of researching going on, because now everything's on the table, isn't it? Everything is literally out for grabs now. Well,
yeah, and that's what I was saying. We're finding out more things, aren't we? And before, something that was, wow, that's preposterous, you know, we wouldn't have even looked twice at it because it was just totally ridiculous or nonsense or whatever. Not anymore. Maybe 5 years ago or something, we're thinking, what? That's ridiculous. Nah.
Do you think the difference is it's not that we believe it and all that. We know it's flat.
We know, yeah.
It's not that we believe it or it's this or a cult or that. It's the truth. We're on a flat plane.
Yeah, but I think once you've accepted that, it's almost like Crystal Maze. You know, you've gone through the Crystal Maze, you've done half a dozen challenges. It's been really hard, and now you've got to the dome or whatever. You've actually achieved an awful lot to get there, and I think it makes you more and more and more open-minded.
You haven't to be like a mini scientist, and it's a bit like all these things you weren't interested at school. Now you're learning, and they're so deep, and there's so much of it, and it's something else, and then there's something else, and more and more. It's a very intellectual thing, isn't it? Flat Earth, really.
Well, I feel really blessed because it's also a fantastic network to belong to, because whatever research line and path you take, there are some growing resources here that are absolutely amazing.
Well, one thing, it's going to make us better people anyway, won't it? You look at the likes of Martin Kenny, Santos Bonacci, their synchronicities, and I mean, there's just so much that we've learned. I've learned so much about religion. I've learned so much about ancient Egypt. I've learned so. I mean, it's just it's a never-ending story, isn't it? It's just like there's so much unfolding,
and we still don't know where we are, what we're on.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy when you think about it, isn't it? But at least I know that for a lot of people, the whole concept of growth is very rewarding anyway. So as long as you're happy in your growth and your research, then I think it's quite fulfilling. It's one of those I think one of those basic needs. If you're getting your growth need met, it's quite rewarding. That's the way I feel anyway, because I can keep going with Flat Earth ad infinitum. It's a fantastic group to be in, and it's a great forefront to wake people up with, because it's so tangible, real, measurable, testable, etc. It's something you can do very practically, very quickly with people. But alongside that, you can then open up other boxes and develop your knowledge and personal development as time goes on. So it's all good. It's all good, people.
So what made you pick the scientist side of it, though? What made you pick that bit?
Well, if I'm honest, it's another forefront that I thought, I don't see anyone necessarily. I saw Mark Sargent opening up every one of his shows with the challenge, and that's brilliant. But I wanted to empower people at home to share a link and put a post in a messenger chat with their mate or their scientist buddy. I wanted to empower people who may not have, lots and lots of confidence to do something simple, like share a link, make a challenge. And, like I said, there's plenty of people who step in and represent, and take a stand for you. I just thought, I want to create digital assets and tools for people to help them reach the scientific community.
It is brilliant, really, because what you're doing is you're taking it out of YouTube and Facebook, where they've kept us, and you're putting it on the internet wider.
That's right. And the guy who emailed me this morning, he's very civil and very polite in his email, so I'm being very civil and polite back, and I'm sure he'll I'm going to record the Skype session. That's another one on the list, and I didn't ask for that. It's just because the video's up there that he's responded to it, because I've posted it in a few Facebook groups. So I reckon he's seen that and gone, I can answer some of those questions. I'm going to step up, and that's what I want to encourage. The more we can get there, the better, because I don't suppose everybody has got a scientist that they know that will come forward and then go, do you know what, you're right? But there are some out there, and we've got to reach those that are honest enough to represent, or put a white paper together, or gather some of their own community and say, we've got a point here, we need to do
we need it on the press, don't
research.
We? Scientists swap sides, is now a flat earther.
Well, it's like the pilots, isn't it, guys? It's like the pilots who got caught on camera. Fair play to them. I don't know if they realised they were going to be captured on camera, but they certainly have been now.
What's this?
I think John, go to John Thor's channel and scroll back. You'll see he's put together 3 one-to-one interviews with pilots in their cockpit, where he's managed to get in and go, "Hello, mate. Tell me, flat or round, or flat or curvature or no curvature, and he's got them talking, and 3 of them have said it's flat, no curvature. It's amazing, because that little video clip there is 3 pilots in a row, and I can't, I'm afraid I can't credit the real creator of the videos. I think he has a New Zealand accent.
I've seen them before. I'm trying to think who it is, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that a lot of people in the chat have seen it as well. They'll know
Yeah,
what I'm
so-
on about.
I've actually seen that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So John Thor's posted it. That's the one that I saw, because I'm connected with
I
John.
thought there was some new ones.
No, but those 3 are very, very compelling, aren't they? So, if 3 pilots are willing to do it, then let's have 3 scientists on record, on camera, saying it. And we want their reasons, and we want a professional white paper or whatever paper they write to be produced. Someone who's reaching the end of their career.
Well, do you know what I reckon? I reckon all those people in those great big observatories need to go to prison too.
Well, you don't know how many are kind of on the payroll.
Yeah, how can they believe that it's light years away? How can they believe when they're looking? If you imagine like what the new P1000's like, and how much extra that gives in, and then you've got like a flat earth dude who comes on. He's got quite a big telescope. You can only buy certain size telescopes. Imagine what they've got, and imagine that they're looking probably right into the star, and they're pretending it's light years away.
Yeah, I know. Well, what can I say? Who do they represent? Whose payroll are they on?
NASA's?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? You've heard it a lot of time. The wrench turners don't really know and don't really need to know. I've got another little testimonial for you, actually. Someone approached Roxanne Glenn about 6 weeks ago, and he's retiring as a planer surveyor, and he knows how to use lasers, and he promised Roxanne he would do a test somewhere down near her and do a proper measured professional laser test across the water. So I expect Roxanne's busy at the moment, but it'd be good to catch up with her and see if that happens. And that was a guy who's willing to blow the whistle, because he's retiring, and he said, I've got all the equipment, I know how to do it. And that's what you need, is someone who can't be argued with. This is my job. I set lasers for a living, and have it documented again. And he was willing to do that. So there's plenty of little anecdotal stories like this happening, and I'm thrilled about that, because it just means the story is getting out there, and everyone's their grey matter is turning. They're saying, how do I get this out? What's the message I need to do?
If I listen to my son, I think he's just about 30 now, he says that a lot of people his age, they know that there's something wrong, even if they don't know what it is. They know that something's really, really, really not right. But he's been places, and he's heard people talking about. He was in a florist, and suddenly the florist was talking about flat Earths. Guy who owned the florist. So you're right, it is out there. But he just says young people know there's something really wrong and don't like the feeling that there is.
Sure. Well, therefore, it doesn't surprise me that the survey in the US had the millennials hands down not believing that NASA landed on the moon. They're more skeptical.
In research, America's the biggest flat Earth place. There's more people in America believe in flat Earth than anywhere else.
Which is awesome.
Well, actually, Karen, there's 4 million people in Russia that are believing in it. Was it not a certain percentage Mark Sargent spoke about not long ago? And that's 4 million people, apparently. That's a fair chunk. A fair chunk.
It's pretty good. Yeah. I remember when I first woke up to conspiracies, it was 2010. And I was as in an investor forum, and someone published the Money Masters in an investor forum. What a red pill to drop that was. If you've seen it, it's Bill Still doing a documentary on the Rothschilds and the whole money system. And I think where was I going to go with this? That's right. The younger generation, my son went to uni, and a lot of his flatmates know all about that stuff. They really are quite wide awake. I think they struggle with flat Earth. I know he's published a couple of videos amongst his mates, and they've had a chuckle about it. But I've been out in the back garden and gone in the daytime and said, well, why is that moon showing a blue sky on the right-hand side, and it should be in the midnight sky? You know, it should be in the dark space. And he was like, yeah, you got a point. He's getting there. He's getting there.
Yeah, and it's a chocolate chip cookie as well. But yeah, it is. I didn't mean to catch that with my iPhone, but I did. And it's a chocolate chip cookie that's causing all that. And there's some light thing going on, but it's the chocolate chip cookie, which yeah.
But I think, you know, there's a lot of people now getting super. They're upping their game, you know, and they're pushing on, and I make reference particularly to the activists who are doing a great job. I just think there's people upping their game, and you know, watch the Canada's Flat Earth conference. Very impressive. You know, if the press walked away after listening to Rob Skeeber's opening speech and still went away and did some kind of send up, then they should be ashamed of themselves. I thought it was a great opening. Really, really, really great. I don't know if you watched it, but he was saying, you know, don't do the easy thing and go away and send us all up. Sit and listen to the evidence and do a bit of honest reporting. I thought it was a great way to open up a conference, because the press do tend to stand there and run away after a couple of hours because they got deadlines and they just watch the first few hours. When I was at the UK conference, I actually sat next to the Times and the Telegraph reporters, and I was sharing them my playlists. I said, what's your email address? Here you go, here you go. I was chatting to them and showing them what I could in the time, in the, you know, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. But yeah, I think a lot of the press run away halfway through the first day because they've got a deadline and they don't want to have to pay for hotels and what have you. So I think people have really upped their game, is my main message. I think there's a lot of really good quality content out there, some great speakers, some great channels, some great material.
I have almost been tempted to send my little video with the paused astronaut to Mr. Trump, but I don't really want him having my address. But I just I just don't understand how when those kind of videos are out, I'm not the only one that's done it. There's many showing there's serious problems that nobody political is looking at this, especially as YouTube's such a big platform. People are showing there's serious issues here, there's serious things wrong. No one's talking about it. Oh, they're somewhere else doing something completely different.
Well, there'll be people in the Flat Earth community that have got friends in high places, and we should appeal to those to put a professional appeal together. If you're not capable of doing it, then reach out to people who are capable of writing a structured petition and put something formal together. Because if you've got a direct or family or warm relationship with someone in a position of power, then you have to take that responsibility. You have to do it. And like I say, there's plenty of people in this community who can write structured legal documents or petitions, or you just have to network. You have to reach out. So get your creative juices going, people. You know,
I think some of it as well is from the research done on this channel by artists, is that all the documents they've released, NASA, have flat Earth in it, or flat plane, which you just put the word flat plane into the search bar and it'll show you all the times they mentioned it. Mm-hmm. He found that people were in groups and there were things happening in the 70s, 80s and 90s. But about in the mid-90s, it just stopped with what you can see on the internet. Flat Earth just completely disappears.
Okay.
So it was there. It was still going on. Even people were being laughed at about it. Okay. And then it just disappears for nearly 20 years.
Interesting. Well, I was listening
that's a generation of people, isn't it? 20 years.
Yeah, well, can I just ask you? Also, you're about similar age to me, I would say.
Okay.
Rather than a bit older.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay.
But when I was at school, I remember the Bedford Locks experiment. You know, I remember reading that in the literature books that we had, and we discussed it in, I can't remember what lesson it was, but we definitely went over it, that's for sure. The end result, I just cannot remember. Way back then, if they said, no, of course we weren't living on a flat earth, we were living on a globe, but back then they thought we were living flat. It was probably something like that, I was probably only about 10, I think, at the time. Around about there, I would imagine, junior school,
Well, it's easy to shuffle the books around and give the kids what they want to give us, isn't it? And shrink shrink the importance of things that they don't want on the agenda.
Yeah, but what I was going to say was, if I've read about it, all those years ago when I was at school, how are they today? Because we know that they're changing history books. You just have to look at how the First World War, Second World War have changed over the last, so many years or whatever. You find history books, written this year or 10 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever. They differ. They differ so much,
Yeah.
And I'd like to know, what does it say in the history books today about the Bedford Locks experiment?
Interesting. Well, go back to Max Egan's video. He was talking about the origin of a single language and how the ruling elites were going into countries and wiping out a whole, where they heard the dialect go back to this central dialect, then they would wipe out that nation's population because they wanted to instill English or instill a single language, which would essentially remove the origins and the meaning that language had going right back for its origins. So fascinating stuff, because it's not only the history books, it's about our language that has been erased in quite a brutal manner. And we've got to be vigilant. We've got to keep our
and all
records.
our spellings and the spells we make. And our research shows that, I'm not saying they weren't talking about it before, but I think, especially in the Western side, we had 2 world wars, which took many years to recover from. But then in the 60s, that's when they turned actually into a ball. Televisions, came petrol, oil and all that, daytime, nighttime savings, going to the fake, the fake moon trip. It was all in the 60s. And look how much they've indoctrinated from the 60s, really.
Crumbs, I know. I'd like to point to people.
It's not 1,000 years. Well, it's only, it's in my lifetime roughly they've done it.
It's crazy. I'd like to point people to another great resource, something I learned an awful lot from, and that's John Taylor Gatto's The Ultimate History Lesson. And it's hosted on a podcast and I think a YouTube channel called Peace Revolution. And John Taylor Gatto was a teacher in the States who taught children how to critically think, and he was quite well acclaimed for turning troubled classrooms into productive groups of children. And the ultimate history lesson is about the installation of the Prussian education system into the US and how big money's interest went straight into the university bursaries, and the agenda and the syllabuses were installed throughout the school system. And it was essentially a corporatocracy asking for faithful wage slaves and doing it through the syllabus. But the way he breaks it down is absolutely brilliant. You hear the whole history of how the same model was the template was taken from Prussia and installed into the US. And I guess the UK followed the same model.
Yeah, what was the name of that guy again? I'm just looking for my pen here.
So I'll spell it. It's John Taylor Gatto, Gatto.
That's easy.
And the interview is a good listen. It's broken into 5 one-hour chunks, so it's a real deep dive. But it's called The Ultimate History Lesson, and it should be on a podcast called Peace Revolution.
Yeah, I'll find it.
Which in turn was the author of Peace Revolution is a 9/11 whistleblower called Richard Grove, and I think he's the one who taught me all sorts about 9/11. He was He was working for Marsh McLennan, who were one of the big insurers on the 91st floor, and he was due to arrive at a meeting for 9:30 on the 91st floor, and he was due to present evidence that there was financial misdealings about the Marsh McLennan clients, and the CEO was supposed to attend the meeting, but he decides the day before to just dial in on a teleconference. And the staff will go along with it because they don't realise he's just made himself safe in an apartment a couple of miles away. And Richard arrives a bit late. He's about 10 minutes late, and he sees the plane go into the World Trade Center. He then sees military-style vehicles coming hightailing out of World Trade Center 6, where there was a massive stash of gold that went missing, going in the wrong direction, just different directions. And he thought something's up here. And it doesn't take him long to ask all the wrong questions and get into trouble.
Robin, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
He said he saw planes going into the Twin Towers.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah, I know where you're going with that, and I realise I made a mistake.
It's all right.
He arrived to the World Trade Center burning. Let's leave it that way. And he arrived just too late for the meeting, and it had already the bomb, sorry, had gone into the side of the building, and he witnessed these military vehicles going off into different directions. Now, I want to now bring Flat Earth back into this conversation because Richard Grove is someone I really look up to. He's written, probably 500 hours worth of excellent material that I've listened to every minute and learned so much from it. But I wrote him an email about Flat Earth because he, plus a few other great channels I used to listen to, I thought these are the go-to guys I must wake up because they got massive audiences. And I wrote Richard a letter, an email, and just gave him a couple of links and said, would you look into this? It's quite important. Do you know what he said? He said, oh, I don't have a lot of time, but I think Aristophanes takes care of this. And so does gravity. And I thought, Richard, mate, you taught me how to do critical thinking. What are you doing? And I must admit, I was a little disappointed, but on a more positive note.
Can I say I had the same kind of thing? I'm not sure if I didn't. Sorry, I don't remember the second name now, but it was Richard D. Hall. I even went to one of his his talks and that, and I was like really fond of him. I just was writing to him, and he did a lot about Madeleine McCann, 9/11. It was amazing, and being laughed at and standing up and doing the same thing. I mentioned Flat Earth. He wrote back to me and he said, "Are you on drugs?"
Oh, but it's so disappointing, isn't it? But I want
to. One thing to say to me, I really thought that he would wake up. I mean, I even wrote back and I said, "See that opening picture? Look at it. It's a flat plane."
I tell you who else I wrote to though, who was actually absolutely awesome about Flat Earth, and that was a guy who has a podcast called Alchemy Radio, and he's stopped doing it now, but I think he might start it again. He's done sort of hit and miss podcasts, but he had Crow 777 on, and I really recommend, if you've got a podcast app, just go look for that particular interview, because it was a masterclass on how to do 1.5 hours of Flat Earth without mentioning the word flat and earth together. It was just brilliant, because I can imagine John was thinking, I've built up my audience. Am I going to alienate all of them if I bring on this controversial subject? And Crow 777 and John absolutely brilliantly just go through all the concepts without actually mentioning flat Earth. It was fantastic, really, really good.
Listening to Crow, I never hear him say, "I'm a flat earther," but the moment you start talking about all the lies in flat Earth, he sees them all.
Really fantastic.
Straw man, we're not, the moon, we're on, the fact that you can't see curvature. He's into it all, but he does not say that he's a flat earther.
Very
But
good.
it doesn't
Well,
matter, does it? He's a lovely man. I really like Crow. He comes on our channel, and I'm really appreciative of that.
yeah, of course. Well, that is a masterclass on how to do an interview and not and not actually mention it. Just come up with all the concepts and don't actually mention it. So I just sort of going forwards, if I may just turn the conversation to going forwards. I know that Harry's got this amazing tour coming up, but I would just say, if it's for the sake of, at risk of repeating myself, if anyone's in the UK and they can connect, go and connect. Go and enjoy some time with Harry and go and watch and learn. And if you've done it before, go and join him. If you want to do it and you haven't yet done it before, just go and observe and see if you can get the confidence to get involved. I'd also say if you've ever thought of starting a meetup, then just do it, please, because you don't know what happens when you've done it, and you'll start to attract all the flat earthers in your local area, and suddenly you got 5, 10, 15 people who are all getting creative together, and it just creates a ripple effect in your area. And finally, there's the provetoglobe.com. I'll just say, if you know a scientist, get on there and challenge them.
Could you put those links back in the actual
Yeah,
chat
of course. Yeah, no problem at all.
I don't know how much longer you want to stay on, because you did give me a time, because
Yeah.
Robin's going away tomorrow morning, so he's got to go shortly.
Yeah, my wife just got back from an evening class, and I know she'll want to talk before we finish packing and what have you. So it would be good to wrap up shortly. That would be great.
Yeah, I think you said everything that you wanted to say.
Yeah.
It's been really great. It's actually really nice meeting a member of our chat room.
Hey, fantastic. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for coming on as well. Very interesting. Great to hear someone's voice, put a face to the name and all that kind of stuff. Can I just ask you, your wife, is she flat as well?
She's probably a reluctant one. She's one of these that's just getting on with life rather than being super involved. But she's very supportive. She came to the conference and she lets me get on with what I'm doing. And I love her to bits. She'll be there just supporting me gently from the background. And that's where she's at.
That's awesome, man. Great.
That's awesome. Really pleased for you. It's always good when your family are supporting you.
Yeah, I mean, I do get the odd raised eyebrow because I'm a bit full on sometimes, but I can't help it. I get a bit excited. But I've just posted proof.
You seem such a calm guy as well.
Well, I can get my hair off. That's gone, but I can get passionate at times. If someone pushes my buttons, but I'm learning in the street activism to stay as calm as I can. Definitely required, especially with guys who make satellites.
Yeah.
So I just want to wrap up by saying thank you so much for having me on, Karen, and it's lovely to talk to you, Astro.
No problem.
Yeah, will you come back on Sun and Moon in the future?
Yeah, of course I will. Be
honoured to reconnect with you.
Maybe you could come on and talk about sun simulators or something.
Okay. Well, maybe I could. Maybe
I don't know why I said that, because I thought we were going to be talking about sun simulators today.
Oh, interesting.
Astral has picked the wrong person. Just to let you know. On Monday.
So it's another day, another person.
It's called Boogeyman Channel,
oh,
and
right,
he
yeah.
talks about sun simulators.
I told you I went to bed at 5.
Monday.
I went to bed at 5 this morning. I'm a bit delirious, so you must forgive me. But yeah,
I'm really glad though that I went and looked on your channel, and thank you for letting me mirror your video. And I love that video, and I love the music as well.
No, me too. I'm so honoured that I'm here, and big love and respect to you guys, because you've introduced me to so many great channels. I think you and Patricia have done, and Patricia Steer across the water have done a great service to us all, really, because you introduce us to people we may never have come across, and then that just makes you feel even more connected. So tip my hat to you guys.
Yeah, and now we'll be doing it with you.
Hey, fantastic. I tell you what I would do. I promise to do is let you know how the next scientists Skype call goes on the 25th. I'll
Yeah,
let you know how
please.
it goes.
Yeah, come on the channel and tell us.
Will do. Be delighted to.
Great.
Anyway,
All right.
thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to the chat room, everybody in the chat room.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah, and we'll be back on Thursday. Have a really nice holiday.
Thank you so much, Karen, and take care. And I'll see you all soon. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
All the best.
We can say goodbye just off air if you like. Just say
No
goodbye. Anyway, I'm
worries.
just going to press the button.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.